Here we go. Hanji, we're back again and we've got a very special episode for you guys today. We're gonna be deep diving into MMA and specifically Pakistan MMA. And for that, we have a very special guest for you guys. The Godfather of Pakistani MMA, as he is known, Mr. Bashir Ahmed. How are you? Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Assalamu alaikum, Saab. Yeah, I'm good.
Wow.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, lovely stuff. So, what we wanted to do here, Bashir Bhai, was that we wanted to start things off in MMA, and there's an
Mhm.
event coming in Pakistan as well.
Yeah.
So, we wanted to start off big. We wanted to start off with someone who has been in Pakistan and
hmm
has pioneered Pakistani MMA.
hmm
So, what I would like you to do is give a small introduction to the Pakistani people who are not familiar with you as to
hmm
what you do and how did you come into MMA.
Um, for people who are not familiar with me, um, to sum it up, um, in 2009, I moved from the United States to Pakistan. I was born in Pakistan, but I was raised in the United States. And I moved to Pakistan in 2009 when I saw that MMA was growing all around the world and it had not taken a foothold in Pakistan. There were a couple of individuals that had started training, but really there was really no real foothold in the country. And I thought that this would be a great opportunity to introduce the sport to Pakistan, to promote the sport in Pakistan, so that there could be growth and champions further down the line. So I came in late 2009 to do that. I thought I would be in Pakistan for just a couple months and then I would leave, but it turned out to be a number of years. And then um, it ended up being with me competing and representing Pakistan
Yeah.
in international MMA. And I became the first person to represent Pakistan and to represent the flag of Pakistan in professional international MMA. And I did that in 2013 at One Championship. And not only did I get a chance to represent Pakistan, but I was also victorious in a fight
Yeah.
that people probably did not think that I was going to win. So, yeah, all these things combined, my work promoting the sport and running the first few shows and kind of setting the stage to bring the community together, and then going on and competing, that gave me the moniker of the Godfather of Pakistani MMA.
Yeah, so that was a huge achievement in itself, becoming the first Pakistani fighter to fight in international MMA circuit, and that too at one championship, which is considered the biggest in Asia, where you work today as well.
Yeah.
So I'd like to rewind it a bit and go into how you became an MMA fighter uh, when you were in the US.
hmm So I became an MMA fighter. Really, the story with this is that I was in college and I was messing around and I wasn't doing very well.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to pay for college myself. And so I joined what is called the National Guard, which is like the Army Reserves.
All
And
right.
they are like state by state. And so if there's like a hurricane or some kind of usually natural disaster, they'll call in the National Guard instead of calling in the regular army. Um, so I joined the National Guard so I could pay for university, and I wasn't going to, you know, waste my university years and then have my parents pay for it. At the very least, I could pay for it myself if I was going to screw around. And so I joined the National Guard, with the intention that they'd pay for university. And in that same time period, um, 9/11 happened and the Iraq War happened, and in something that was unprecedented, the National Guard got called up to go overseas, which is not something that anybody foresaw. So I went overseas. I served in Iraq. I was a medic there for a bomb disposal unit. And
All right.
while over there, I started getting into boxing. When I joined the military, I was learning about like hand-to-hand combat, and I got really obsessed with it. When I came back from Iraq, it kind of became like a sort of therapy for myself. So I got really into martial arts very, very quickly. No intention of ever competing. I just wanted to learn like how to defend myself. I wanted to, learn about hand-to-hand combat. I wanted to learn about martial arts. And on this journey, I figured that I was not really going to get into a street fight. That's because that's not who I am. And I, I wasn't going to become a bouncer. Just I didn't think that was feasible. So may as well um, see where I can do some kind of fights and use the things that I've learned just for my own martial arts development. And this is in 2005. So MMA is just becoming really beginning to kind of get into I wouldn't even call it the mainstream, but it's beginning to get onto the scene in the United States,
Mm.
let alone other
Yeah.
places in the world. So I wanted to compete in MMA, and I started training for that. And I got quickly obsessed with that. And soon into that journey, I was like, well, I'd love to bring this to Pakistan. There's nobody representing Pakistan. There's nothing
Yeah.
in Pakistan. I had seen that India had gotten the ball rolling
Yeah.
in MMA, and there was no way that I was going to have Pakistan be left behind. So in 2009, after spending some time training in Thailand, like full
Yeah.
time for about a year, I moved to Pakistan to kind of devote myself to this.
So, you coming into Pakistan, was that primarily on the basis of that you want to train other kids, or was there other motives to it?
No, it was to like what I saw, what I envisioned, right, is that I was going to come to Pakistan and I was going to rent a place that could serve as like a training facility. And I was
All
going to
right.
find a boxing coach, and I was going to find a wrestling coach, and I was going to find like a karate coach and a
Mm.
judo coach. And I was going to be like, hey, this is MMA,
Yeah.
and all of you have something to offer. How about you all work together and start
Mm.
training people? Train myself too. Like I had only been
Mm.
training for martial arts for like 3, 4 years. It's not
All
like
right.
super good or anything like that. Um, and this can be the staging ground for future talent to come out. This was my mindset, and I thought that I would
Uh,
set this up, and then a few months later, I was going to go back to America, and I was going to find a job, and I was going to go about kind of more normal existence. But that didn't happen. Nobody wanted to work with each other in Pakistan. Surprise, surprise. For me, it was a surprise. Now looking
yeah.
back, after having spent that time in Pakistan, right?
Like, yeah.
It's not a surprise to me anymore. Now I
Not
feel
anymore.
dumb for having these really naive ideas when I was first coming to Pakistan. What people have to realize is that when I went to Pakistan in 2009, I went there thinking that I'm going back to the homeland. I am a Pakistani. It took a number of years of living in Pakistan before realizing that it's not so simple. I
Yeah.
am actually significantly American with some Pakistani mixed in. I have these
Yeah.
both of these things are inside of me, right? And so I had some naive conceptions about actually living and working in Pakistan when I came there in 2009, and I'm very grateful for that experience. But anyway, so people didn't want to work together.
Yeah.
Everyone is really critical of me and telling me like I was stupid and that this is like against human rights and like you're wasting your time. You don't know anything. Like me and my hawk kung fu style and
Yeah.
weird martial arts is like that's the real future, not this MMA stuff that they're talking about. So anyways, what happened is that instead of working
Yeah.
with established martial artists who had for some of them real skills, like we have good wrestling in Pakistan, we have
Yeah.
strong boxing, and we have other combat sports. We have good wushu that can add to this, these ingredients to like make an MMA fighter. They weren't really interested. And so I
Mm.
was then reaching out to people who really had no martial arts experience and were starting out, like younger people who were more exposed and were following trends in the world. So this is like 2005. This is people who are watching YouTube and be like, oh, this MMA stuff, this is crazy. Like, and like really getting into it when it was a really niche subculture thing in that time. Like Anderson Silva and
Yeah.
Rich Muslin and Matt Hughes and Chuck Liddell, Randy Couture, like this era. And these people who didn't have a martial arts background, and they would go to their local boxing place or their local judo place or their local karate place and be like, no, whatever that stuff that you saw on YouTube, that's nonsense. Come learn our kata over here with us, And so, so then I linked up with, a lot of these people, or people who had, like, in the case of Fight Fortress, a long pedigree in other martial arts. They came from Taekwondo and karate, if I'm not mistaken. Those two primary influences for those guys. But they saw the future and they saw where things were going, and so they wanted to go in that direction. But they had really no community to connect with, and so I linked up with them and others like them, and we all started working towards that kind of mission of building up the sport in Pakistan.
All right. So you mentioned that you came here to train martial artists, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you that you did uh, become successful in that, in a sense that you managed to create two academies over here. One is Tiger Eye,
Yes.
and the other is Shaheen Academy.
Hmm.
So tell me about how that process worked and what these two academies are for you.
So Shaheen Academy,
Yeah.
the first gym that I opened in Pakistan in early 2010 in Lahore, it was called Shaheen Academy.
All right.
Um, and that was by K Block off of Ghazi Road for anybody who's watching this and remembers, and trained there. And then later on, that became Synergy, right? It was called an academy called Synergy. In that time period, Synergy was the commercial spot, and then alongside it was Shaheen, which then became like an NGO and is still running. Synergy shut down when I left Pakistan to work for One Championship, but Shaheen has kept running for the past now almost 10 years. And Shaheen
Yeah.
is an NGO. It educates kids, provides educational scholarships, provides after-school tuition for people in the neighborhood. This Shaheen is based in a low-income neighborhood in Lahore called Cheddarpin. So over there, we provide education. We give scholarships to some of the kids. We provide after-school tuition, free training for kids. A structured environment, and that's really how I give back to the MMA community of Pakistan. That's how I give back to Pakistan in whatever small way that I can. And even right now, we run on donations from around the world, and
That's great.
yeah. So anybody who might be interested, you can just search GoFundMe.com, Shaheen Academy, and we'll come up. So we need the support of everybody, and unfortunately, about 90%, if not more, of our support comes from people overseas. Within Pakistan, really not much support at all. And
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
some,
I've noticed this trend too.
yeah, and to some extent, I understand it. Um, but it is a little bit ironic and somewhat unfortunate that this is the situation where it's being supported by foreigners for the most part overseas and non-Pakistanis with a minimal contribution by Pakistanis. I would say significant from overseas Pakistanis, very small from domestic Pakistanis, very small from domestic Pakistanis. Now, fast forward to Tiger Eye. Tiger Eye is actually a new gym that I've opened up in Bangkok. So Tiger Eye had its grand opening officially in April,
Yeah.
and we are located in Bangkok, and we are growing very quickly, very quickly. I mean, I have a big vision for this gym, and so far so good, but it's still in the early stages.
All right. So I believe it's safe to say that Tiger Eye isn't run on Pakistani donation money as well.
No, no, yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's
All
not.
right. All right. So let's fast forward it a bit, right?
Uh-huh.
Uh, we talked about your journey coming into Pakistan. I'd like you to describe how was one championship and what was that experience like fighting at one championship.
I mean, the very first fight that I had in one championship when I made my debut,
Yeah.
I mean, it's really up there in terms of like greatest moments of my life, and there's not going to be much I think that's going to be able to top it. Um, I there was something very magical about that time. um, from the training camp. Um, I did the majority of my training camp in Pakistan. I trained with my students. I didn't have coaches for myself. You know, I trained myself. I took my students to help me. I would there was a wrestling coach that would come in once a week. Uh, he helped me, but it was for the most part all in Pakistan. And then the final 17 days, of which five of which are like in at the fighter hotel. I went to Singapore and I trained there to finish things up. But it was amazing having because then I had a friend from Pakistan, Mahmoud Zaman, was also a musician, and then a student of mine come in as my cornerman, and like the online odds for the fight, it was something like 98% were voting in favor of my opponent. You know, it was just like an afterthought. It was Pakistani
Wow.
guy just here to represent their country, but just get crushed. You
Filling
know,
up the numbers.
yeah, yeah. But it was great because honestly, like I knew what my skill level was, and I knew what my opponent was very good. He went on to even challenge like title challengers after we had fought, but um, I knew that I could beat him, um, and so I was, the whole week, the whole time, I was very confident, and I felt like I was there to spoil everybody's party. So when the fight happened, I mean, early on in the fight, I got cut. I got cut in maybe the first 30 seconds or a minute, like a really bad cut. A cut that now would very likely stop the fight, you know. But this is in the early days of one
Yeah.
championship, and things were, I guess, a little bit more lenient when it comes to that kind of stuff. Because I was a bloody mess, and nowadays with sponsors and stuff like that, sometimes if the bleeding is out of control, they
So,
stop it.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, but they let me fight, and I remember when I got cut, I was like, "That's it. This is how it ends." Like in the first minute after all this training and confidence about how it was going to go, but they let the fight go on, and then I turned the tide from there, and it was 3 rounds. Went to a decision and got the unanimous decision win. And yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing to hear uh, my name called, and to have Pakistan represented in not just its debut at a major league, but
Yeah.
a debut and a victory. I think in most of these situations, most people be like, चलो वहां पे पहुंचना बहुत बड़ी बात है,
Yeah.
इतना बहुत बड़ी बात है, like people would have taken winning as like an afterthought. That's not going to happen. But hey, पहुंच गए तो ये तो बहुत बड़ी बात है इस मंजिल पे पहुंचना, right? So, but that wasn't enough. So,
Yeah.
and I knew we'd be able to pull it off, and I did.
That's great. That's great. Now,
Mhm.
having your first fight at one championship and now working in one championship, how different are these roles? And kindly tell all of these viewers that what do you do at one championship now?
So, for one, I mean, it's a very big difference between being on one side of the cage
Yeah.
versus the other. And gosh, what can I say? I mean, like, um, in the beginning, it was really, really difficult. It was really, really difficult to transition. And at first, when I got the offer to work for one in an executive role, I had to be convinced of it, and I was going to decline, and I was going to, wait a little bit more before considering something like that. But after discussing with family and talking to the leadership at one, and then obviously, reflecting on it myself, I decided that the right decision would be to go forward and transition from an athlete to an executive role. So I joined one as matchmaker, and so or specifically, I was doing the competition department, and so my roles would be making sure that put it this way, any large sports organization that you have, right? Whatever, like it's the Premier League, or I'm assuming also the same with
Mm,
cricket, with like the Indian Premier League or the Pakistani Super League, um, the NFL, whatever.
yeah.
If you have, say, 500 employees, there's only a fraction of them that actually deal with the sport. The rest of them are
Mm,
for other things, right? The rest of them are for production, accounting, legal, logistics, operation,
yeah.
blah blah blah, right? So
Marketing and stuff.
exactly, yeah. So I
Mm,
was one of the few people who actually dealt with the sport,
mm,
and so my role was having to do anything involved with the actual sport, you know.
mm,
So I would be coordinating with like all other departments about it, because somebody could come in and they could be a extraordinaire when it comes to production, right? But
mm,
they don't actually know about the sport, the
yeah.
ins and outs, the details, and I have to kind of work with them to make those
Mm,
things fuse and work together, right?
mm,
So dealing with arranging with officials, scouting athletes, matching athletes up as for who fights who, negotiating their contracts, making sure that any permits or federate sanctioning bodies are the
mm,
rules are abided with, safety standards are met, that the competition flow and how the competition is organized, and the whole process is
mm.
during fight week and fight night, making sure those are running adequately. So that was my job in one championship, and you know that experience has it's really played a very very important role into the current success of Tiger Eye as well, because I took a break from one in right before opening Tiger Eye. There's no way
Okay.
that I would be able to be doing both these jobs or both these things at the same time. Yeah,
Interestingly, that was my next question. How do
yeah,
you balance all of this? Was
yeah. It
but
would
you
be
cleared that
impossible.
up.
Yeah, yeah, it would be impossible because especially like right now, it's a little bit different post COVID because there's so many Thailand shows. But before that, I would be traveling like 2 weeks out of the month.
Mm,
Sometimes like I would come back on a Saturday morning, Saturday
mm,
afternoon, and then I would fly out on Sunday night or Monday morning, to go to the next show.
yeah.
So that would be pretty much impossible. And then now in Thailand, we had so I was involved in like setting up our the one fight nights,
Mm,
one Friday fights rather, at Lumpini Stadium, and those were every week,
mm,
and that was also no respite at all. So doing those Lumpini shows plus doing the international, as in outside of Thailand shows for the global shows. So those things, it was just when it came time to pull the trigger on building my own gym here in Thailand. Like it was not something,
mm.
not two things that I could do at the same time. It'd be impossible. Like, and right now with the new gym, I actually feel like I'm much busier than I was at one championship. So there'd be no way that I could do both these things at the same time.
Yeah. All right. So, Shibai, let's talk about a bit about Pakistan's
Yeah,
current MMA
yeah,
climate, right?
yeah,
So, I've noticed. I'd be frank with you. I'm not a huge fan of MMA. I don't
yes,
watch it regularly,
yeah.
but having said that, I do see that the seeds are brewing. They're like the MMA is getting up there with one of the most followed sports in the country,
Hmm.
slowly but surely.
Yeah.
So, what do you view as what can MMA do? Or, sorry, let me rephrase that. What can Pakistan do about MMA and its growing influence? How can we steer that into making something very big?
I think that the main thing is time. That's what I've always said, because people are like, oh, we need a higher level of athletes. Okay. Well, if you
Mm,
were someone were to dump $1 million, right, 1 billion rupees or whatever, however much that is, 3 billion rupees or whatever, right, into the sport today, tomorrow you're not going to have a champion, right? It's not possible. You're not even going to have a champion in a year because it still takes time
yeah.
to learn, right? Like think about any sport, or even let's say rocket science. Pakistan has a dream of going to the moon. Right? And so if you put all that investment, you're not going to turn an 18-year-old into a rocket scientist in a year. It still takes time to learn, right? So the same thing
Yeah.
with the sport, right? Like the biggest thing is time. And so, like if there is a large injection of investment, then the current athletes who are hungry and talented and at the top of their game, they will have an easier time training, at a high level, whether that means bringing coaches in or it means training overseas. But many of them are already training overseas anyway, right? So it wouldn't necessarily change their position, aside that maybe whoever is supporting them, or if they're supporting themselves, that burden would be relieved. But it's not going to all of a sudden create a champion, right?
Yeah.
Each person and people still need to go through that process of learning. So the number one thing is time. Secondly, it's if people are watching the sport, there will be sponsors that come on board. There will be investment. So as long as the people who are um, passionate about MMA, of which there are many, and many people who are working really hard. I can name things like Daniel from On the Mic. There's
Yeah.
from Brave Gin and the Pakistani MMA Federation. There was Baba Raja and his supporters at SA Gardens and their MMA Federation, and many more, right? Who are putting their money into it, and they're putting their time into it, and so and with each little bit of evidence that they can gather to show sponsors and show government officials that, hey, this sport is growing, there's going to be things that come with it. So that's really how else it's going to grow. Like if now, like taking yourself as an example, now you're not really passionate about MMA, right? And not everyone is going to be. But now, for example, if as the sport grows, maybe a friend of yours, right, decides, hey, I'm going to do a fight, well, you're probably going to show up to watch them fight.
100%.
Yeah, you're going to either go to the stadium or the venue where it's happening, or you're going to be watching it online. Which of course, digital streaming. Everyone can like have a live show, via Instagram or via Facebook, right? But then you would be involved in that way. So it's just really about time. I think also changing perceptions that you don't that one, you can do it for fun, like you don't ever have to fight. You can do it for your fitness and to learn self-defense and have a fun hobby that can potentially serve you down the line if someone ever attacks you with problems, or if you do want to compete, you don't have to compete at a really high level. Maybe you just want to have that bucket list. I want to get in the cage one time, right? And I don't and I can do that, right? And it's okay. And it's okay just to get that experience in, and it's not like it's a world championship. And if I lose, it's the end of the world. Or, if I win, it's going to change my life. But just changing that perception that it's okay to do these things a bit more casually, right? So that maybe you don't have friends that are going to want to put the blood, sweat, and tears to possibly become a champion. But it's much more likely you're going to have friends who will want to join for fun and then be like, you know what, I'll do a fight. Then you go to the event, you watch the event, you support your friend, you see other fighters, you're like, oh, wow, that guy was really good. I'm going to follow his career now. I'm going to follow him on Instagram. I'm going to follow him on Facebook. I'm going to follow him on TikTok or whatever, or her. And all of a sudden, we got new fans. So it's a process. And I've really, in the beginning when I was promoting MMA in Pakistan, I didn't really realize that there's a lot of things you can't force, right? You can't force the Pakistani public to like MMA, right? You can't hold a gun to their head and be like, everybody has to like MMA as much as I do, right? It's not going to happen, right? And I think for the people who are passionate about it, they're doing the right thing. They're supporting the sport. They're taking part, and it'll grow. It'll grow. Like MMA is the reality is it may not be as popular in all countries at the same rate and at the same time. There's some countries where MMA is very popular, but it'll only be popular while they have like a major champion. When that champion is gone, then it goes down a little bit to a new baseline, right? So it's the main thing is time. I think Pakistan is going in the right direction, and while I think it could be sped up if there was investment in it, and you have to ask yourself, why would anybody invest? there has to
Yeah.
be somebody who's providing the evidence as to why it's like a good financial, investment. Now, if the government wanted to put in money for like as a soft power initiative for, I
Yeah.
mean, whether it's an MMA or all sports, okay, that's fine. But now that opens up a completely other topic: is the Pakistani government like competent enough to handle these funds and how they will be utilized and what they'll do,
Yeah.
right? That becomes something that goes outside of sports into the Pakistani system and culture itself, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, that's my answer about what is about Pakistani MMA and where it may go and what it can be
Yeah.
done about it.
Let's. You talked about when you started MMA in Pakistan.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a few stories about the fighters from that era and how they've progressed.
Yeah,
Now Pakistani MMA has progressed.
right.
Some
So
stories to share with our
yeah,
viewers.
yeah. So I'll tell you about some of the people who fought in early shows. Okay, so let's go with somebody that maybe not everybody has heard of, but maybe for people locally in Lahore, there's somebody named Sharia, right? And he's coming to mind because I saw a picture of his new gym in Lahore on Facebook or Instagram. He's giving out belts. So he's a black belt now. He was training
Okay.
at in Askari 10, I think, in Lahore, out by like
Lahore.
yeah, by the airport. And
Yeah.
it's like two or three buddies training in some room, watching YouTube videos. Didn't know anything about jiu-jitsu, but he stuck with it. Fought at like the early shows. And now he's one of the few homegrown Pakistani black belts. He opened up a gym, which looks like he's doing very well. And so there's that trajectory too. Like he's not somebody who got like really popular. He didn't fight, in a large promotion or anything like that. But he's somebody that helps add so much to the scene and to the infrastructure of Pakistani MMA, right? Because through his passion for teaching and through his competence, he's going to set the stage and the foundation for a lot of people's jiu-jitsu games, and where they go, maybe they become fans of the sport or they open up their own gyms, whatever. But he plays a very pivotal role. So there's somebody like him.
Yeah.
Let's take Shazib Rim. I don't know if you've heard of Shazib Rim.
Shazibrim. Yeah.
Yes, but he's gotten very popular,
Yeah.
right? So I'll tell you a story about him. And this was maybe 2014 or 2015. We were holding a show. I think it was our first show or our second show called Pac MMA Fighting Alliance. It was our first show. We were holding at somebody's studio, Umair Fazli's studio outside of Lahore. And so he was fighting somebody. Actually, the thing is, he wasn't fighting somebody. His coach was supposed to be fighting somebody.
Oh, right.
And so, this fight happens, and Shazib wins, right? And I'm reading the scorecard, and I'm like, hold on a second. You're not that person who's supposed to be here. Like, so whoever was supposed to be fighting, for whatever reason, I don't remember, they dropped out. They're like, oh, chalo, I'll fight, chalo. But it doesn't work like that. You can't just ask somebody to come fight in your place and not tell anybody else, right? And, like, you can't have that. You can't have, like, say, with Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul. And then everyone thinks it's like, yeah, Mike Tyson's fighting Jake Paul. Then when time for Mike Tyson to walk out, Evander Holyfield walks out. And then it's like, no, you can't do that. You can't just, like, push somebody like that. So anyway, I'm reading out the result, and then, and he did really well. Shazib is a really good fighter, and he did really well. He won the fight. And when it comes time to read the result, I'm like, you're not that guy. And then the person won. So that's the first time that I met Shazib, right? And later on, I was able to get him a fight in one championship. He fought a really high-level guy. He did very well. He lost that fight, but there was, I think, a lot of factors going into it. He was not, properly prepared for it. But I mean, he did really well regardless. Like, he was a very high-level person. And then later on, he got an opportunity to go to the United States and train there at Dochet Academy, and now he's killing it. And he's doing very, very well. He's gotten very popular. He's made a name for himself. He might fight for the body combat title. And let's see where he goes. I think he's somebody to look out for as being the first Pakistani to compete in the UFC. I think it's very possible. It is Shazam, right? then you have Ahmed Mustafa.
Yeah.
Ahmed Mustafa was fighting at the early shows as well, like ECL, also MMA Fighting Alliance. I repped some of his fights. He came over and would stay at my apartment in my room with the rest of the Team Fight Fortress people when there was shows
Mhm.
going on. He's somebody that I just saw as like a teenager coming onto the scene. And
Yeah.
I went and later I cornered him for his first fight in one championship when he fought Benedict Yang. Also, he
Yeah.
came in as an underdog. He also came in and he won with a dominant performance. And and then that set off his career. We went on to fight people like Sage Northcutt and one championship
Mhm.
debut in the United States. And I was also able to be his corner for his last fight, which he was doing very well, but he fought a really, really tough guy, like a top five ranked guy, and unfortunately he wasn't able to get the win in that one. Um, yeah, Josh, there's so many stories and memories of these fighters. There's Anita Karim
Mhm.
as well. Anita Karim is somebody that I signed to One Warrior Series. So she made
Mhm.
her debut MMA fight in One Warrior Series. I've been ringside or cage side to almost every single one of her fights except for one, which I had to stay in quarantine and watch from
Yeah.
hotel room. But
Yeah.
otherwise, yeah, I've been alongside at pretty much every one of her fights aside from that one. And it's a family affair. My kids come out, my wife comes out to support her. Um, so yeah, she is a. Well, let me tell you a story about her.
Yeah.
Really recently, I'm not going to name any names here, but this is not that long ago. This is like a couple months ago, if not a month ago. I was at a Muay Thai fight in Pattaya. I was cornering some fighters, and I asked her to come and just hang out. And so the fighter fights, and then the fighter's coach slash manager starts berating the fighter after in the locker room, uh,
Mhm.
and you know, and you know, she steps in and she's like, "That's not right." And it's like there's this like little girl, and she's like up in this dude's face. It's like, "Yeah, what are you gonna do about it? Hit me, like Mujimara, hit me," and everyone is just like, "Whoa!" This like superwoman, like I mean, she has courage, she has guts, not just in the ring, but in real life. Like she, like that was like when I saw that, I was like, this is evidence of why every woman needs to be training in martial arts because the confidence
For sure.
she showed there, like like this was not something that but she was just like up there, being like, no, you can't do this. I don't care who you are. I don't care that you're bigger than me or stronger than me because if you lay a hand on me, I'm going to send you to the hospital, right? So
It's crazy.
yeah, yeah, Nita's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So, just last couple of questions
Mhm.
I'd like to ask you. How did you manage to get UFC legend Rich Franklin come to Pakistan? What was that experience like?
That was a lot of fun. Me and Rich have become like uh, good friends.
Yeah.
Just like we both worked at one championship, and while there, um, we just hit it off. We like talking about similar topics, and that trip to Pakistan was awesome. You so like some moments. It really didn't take much convincing for him to come to Pakistan because
Mhm.
I was the matchmaker for his show, One Warrior Series,
Yeah.
and so they were looking around at different places to go to film, and obviously I being from Pakistan, talking about Pakistan,
Yeah.
they're like, "Hey, Pakistan, absolutely,"
Yeah.
So some highlights from that trip were the trip was in Lahore and in Hunza. We filmed the Lahore portion, and we go drive up to Islamabad to take a flight to Hunza,
Hmm.
and flights are canceled. Right, this is in like November or December
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
so it's cold.
Usually flights get
Yeah,
cancelled that time.
flights are
Yeah.
canceled, and so we're sitting there being like, because we have 3 days, right, until we fly back to Singapore,
Yeah.
um, and like, what do we do? And things like, how long will it take us to drive there? And so would be like 15, 18 hours, right? And so we sit there and we're like, all right, let's do it, you know?
Yeah.
And so we drove all the way up to Hunza. And, you know, me and Rich, like, we got, like, we were friends before, became even closer friends, being stuck in a vehicle for
Yeah.
18 hours, trying to keep ourselves sane on that ride. And so we get to Hunza, we film, and then we see that it's going to snow. And we're like, we got to check our flight because we're going to fly back. Flight canceled, you know? And we're like, oh, God, what do we do? And it was either right before Thanksgiving or right before Christmas, and Rich had a flight to go home to see his mom, who hadn't seen her in a long time, right? He's like, I got to make it back home. And we're like, well, if we wait till tomorrow for the next flight, that flight might be canceled too.
Yeah.
We're like, all right, let's drive back down. We drove 18 hours to Hunza. We spent 12 hours in Gilgit,
Hunza.
filmed, and then drove back, right?
18 hours. For
Yeah. And, you know, and during this time, it was just funny, like, we started running out of cash on the way. And so we had to get something. So we stopped at this, like, truck stop, like a dhaba, like, proper.
Yeah.
And to be there with Rich Franklin sitting on the truck bike, eating dal, you know, at, like, at a truck stop. That was amazing. Like,
I'm sure. I'm sure.
I was sitting there, like, I was watching this guy 5 years ago fight for the UFC title against people like Anderson Silva, and now I'm sitting here on a truck bike eating dal with him. You know, so yeah, that was awesome.
That was awesome. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
So Bashir bhai, last couple of things
Yeah.
I would like to discuss. Ek to Brave CF85 is
Yeah.
coming to Pakistan. It's gonna
Yeah.
be a festival. So it's the first time they're coming to Pakistan.
No, it's the second
It's the
time.
second time. It's second time. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's the second time they're coming. So how big of an occasion is this, and how can Pakistan build on something like this?
Well, so this is not just Brave coming to Pakistan. It's actually
Yeah.
Brave and IMAFF.
And
They're having,
IMAFF.
having the Asian
Yeah.
Championships in the same week. So one thing that I, you know, with time and MMA in Pakistan, I feel like the, you know, the level of milestone just gets like, the standard gets higher and higher and higher, you know? Like something like this would be unimaginable even 5 years ago. Like unimaginable that this happened. And it's kind of like people almost take it for granted. Like, you know,
Yeah.
like, yeah, okay, you know, this is great. Everyone is on the same page that this is the biggest event that has been held in Pakistan. It's a milestone event. Like, history is being made right now.
Yeah.
But there are also some times where I kind of get the feeling that people aren't as, like, totally blown away as when we were having, like, other events that was, like, really kind of the first one, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like in the past, people were a lot more kind of like blown away and maybe even grateful for the small events that we had than now. You know, like with Brave coming here, I feel people are like, oh yeah, Brave is here, that's great, but I don't. Sometimes I feel like they don't really understand the journey that took to even get to where this is. Like for people to take it for granted. Right, or the hard work that people put into to make this happen. You know, it's people kind of thinking it as like, oh, just like that's great, a big event, just like another event. But it's not. It's just like something really, really special that's happening. And so there's Pakistan versus India fights on this one, which is huge. I personally, I don't know if, about what happened with Indian visas. Right, it's always a sensitive topic. India versus Pakistan fight has only happened once on Pakistani soil in MMA, and that Indian person was an American citizen, so they were able to get the visa, right? And that was tough, and that happened at the last moment. So in this situation, with Indian nationals coming over, I don't know what the status is. I'm not involved in organizing the event, but I know that it's never easy. And, you know, hopefully, I don't know, somebody watching this, if it comes out before the event, and is linked with, you know, diplomatic affairs, you know, wants to step in and help if they need it. Again, I don't know what the status is. Maybe everyone has their visa. But yes, please
Hopefully
do.
they do.
Yeah. But yeah, it's going to be huge, and we have people like homegrown talent like Rizwan Ali,
Yeah.
Ismail Khan that are fighting on this show against very good opponents.
Yeah. It's gonna be a festival, and I like all of the people who are in Lahore and across Pakistan
Hmm.
to come to the event and make this a
Oh yeah,
successful one,
yeah,
because that's
yes,
what Pakistan needs. You need to cherish such moments, be it
yes,
in any sport,
yeah,
because we've been deprived of having sports over here,
yeah.
hosting sporting events. So this is one of those events कि आप लोगों को जाओ और जाके celebrate करो यार इतनी बड़ी occasion. Bashir bhai, last thing, do you have any message that you would like to share with the MMA enthusiasts in Pakistan?
I mean, the number one thing is first of all, I have to say thank you to everybody who has made this possible. I have to thank you to say people like Umar Ahmed, who is working really hard to make this upcoming Brave event happen, and
Yeah,
to John Yob. Thank you to all the people uh, who, whether they were supporting me or they were competing against
agree.
me, you know,
Yeah,
that pushed me and pushed this sport forward, you know. And to thank you to all the people who gave me this experience of being able to be a professional athlete and who stopped me and be like, "Oh, can I have a selfie with you? Can I have your autograph?" I mean, that's like the main thing I have to be very thankful for. Like, not everyone gets to have this kind of experience in life, and I was able to, and I was able to by virtue of being Pakistani. I think that's something. In fact, what I have to say to the MMA community, and especially to the fighters, is be very, very grateful uh, for being in a country where, yeah, you can complain that maybe it's not at the level, maybe you're not getting the support. But I'll be honest with you, for the level of achievements, that people achieve, the reception that they get is not normal. And what I mean by that is, like, if someone from, say, Korea, random country, goes in, wins in one championship, honestly, not many people are going to make a big deal out of it. They're going to have to, like, get lots of wins, go to for the title, maybe win the title in order to get a recognition that someone making their debut in a small show internationally from Pakistan can get. Then you, like, and it comes from the fact that we have a lack of sports news and sports accomplishments.
sporting culture,
Yeah,
basically. Yeah,
it comes from a lack of depth from that. But
Mhm.
be grateful that you're able to do that, because I bet that for the people even now who are at the top, if you were say from the United States, you would be nobody right now. You know, and so
yeah.
you have to. So I have to thank Pakistan, and I have to thank being Pakistani and being in that situation where I was able to, relative to my accomplishments and my skill level, to be able to get the support and the appreciation that I did. And I'm very, very grateful to everyone who played a role in that.
We're grateful to you, Bashir Bhai, for bringing this MMA culture to Pakistan and shining a light on Pakistani MMA artists.
Mhm.
So thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah.
It was fun. It was a fun talk I had. I learned lots of new stuff about
Thank you.
MMA as well. So
Mhm.
I'm grateful for you to teaching me about that as well. And hopefully you all like the video as well. If you did, click on that like button, subscribe to our channel. Easy पैसा और Patreon के through हमारे जानी of the podcast भी बन सकते हो. 0319360255 is the number. So do that as well. बशीर भाई मुझे हर एक को हर जगह follow कर दो, chill मारो, and have a good life. We'll see you guys next time. Until then, Allah Hafiz.